like to do a little research before each interview. And like honestly, I didn't know too much about you or Harb's from the website. It said that you were a flight instructor since 2003, and then you started your aerobatic career in the Pitts biplane. So,
Yeah,
can you just really, I guess, give us your story from that start in aerobatics?
sure. Absolutely. Well, I'll take it back to like how I got into aviation. So I'm part of a flying family here in central Canada, province of Manitoba. That's where I'm from. So my father, his name is Harb. That's where the Harb's Air thing comes from.
Hmm.
So we've been a flight school here in central Canada since 1972. Started off just with my dad and my mom running the show, one airplane. My dad was the instructor. My mom ran the books. And then that eventually grew into now where we are nowadays. We have about 40 airplanes, 32 instructors full time, and all the courses and all the ratings that you do. So we've grown into one of Canada's biggest flight schools. Definitely one of the bigger private schools. So I got my license, my private license in 2004. And then when I passed my flight test, my private flight test, my dad, he took me up, and we had a Pitts at the time, Pitts S2B. So he took me up in that as a reward for passing the flight test. And that was my first time really doing aerobatics. And that was a very magical flight for me. I thought like, I need to do this. I need to learn how to do everything you just did.
Right.
So then during my time building from towards my commercial license, I got checked out on one of our Citabrias at the school. And so I learned all the basic aerobatics on a Citabria, on an American Champion Citabria. So I got all the hour requirements that I needed to be able to take passengers up. In Canada, you need 10 hours of aerobatic dual for that. So I did all my 10 hours, just practicing all the basics, loops, rolls, hammerheads, spins, all those kind of things. And then started taking friends up, and then saw how they reacted to that. That kind of started a fire in me, like, wow, like I really like sharing this with people. This is really cool. And then got my instructor rating in 2006, early 2006, and then properly got checked out on the Pitts after that, and then started giving rides, like commercial rides. Like we have a ride service that we do here. We give these joy rides, and started teaching on the Pitts like a year after that. And then that's kind of what's led me to today. I've just been obsessed since that first initial ride that I got after my private license. It's been an obsession that's only deepened throughout the years. And the cool thing with aerobatics is you can do it as deep or as, I don't want to use the word shallow, but you can do it on whatever level you want and get enjoyment from it, get benefit to your other types of flying that you do, which is really cool. It's such a deep activity. So nowadays, I've been a competition aerobatic pilot since 2016. Currently competing at the advanced level in an extra 300L. That's what I fly.
We're still talking about the biplane in
Mm,
the S2B. I
yeah.
watched a couple videos of yours while you were doing different type of maneuvers and you were practicing. I guess it was for the, I don't want to get this wrong. It might have been the 2016 national championship.
Yep. Yeah. I have some videos on that. Yeah. In
And
Texas.
exactly. And what I like, this is just a personal opinion, but after watching that S2B video and then watching your first time in the extra 300 video, it kind of seemed like you had more fun in the 300. So in your opinion, like what makes that extra 300, so special? Because I've heard just nothing but good things about that plane.
uh, yeah. So where do I begin? So the Pitts, the S2B, we had that airplane for almost 20 years. I flew it for about half of that time. And I mean, I love that airplane. Like it taught me so much. Like you could have that airplane for 5 or more years, and it'll teach you something every time you fly. So I really got a good foundation in that airplane. I flew it for probably 7 or 8 years before I even did one competition. Um, so it taught me so much. The extra, I always knew about them and was always very curious and always heard probably a lot of the things you heard about performance and how how easy they are to fly and just the capability, the roll rates and the vertical penetration, all that stuff. So in 2008, I went to California and I did a checkout at Sunrise Aviation at Orange County Airport, John Wayne, and got checked out. And they actually rented solo there, so I was able to take it solo. I actually took a friend up, and that was just a very captivating flight. Like, it was one of those pivotal flights, kind of like that ride that I had initially. This
Yeah.
was one of those pivotal flights. Like, here I am above, there's the Pacific coast, so there's the mountains off to the east, and I got my friend up front reacting to everything, and I'm flying this airplane where everything is so easy. Like, the roll rate is so fast and the controls are so light and the visibility is so good. I don't have a wing blocking my view
Hmm.
above me. So that flight really stayed with me. That whole experience in California, I did about 5 hours over there. So so I continued to fly the pits for almost 10 more years after that. But it was always on my mind, one day I would like to upgrade. I just needed, I guess, a bit of a stronger catalyst. So once I got into competition flying, I started in Sportsman,
Hmm.
and that video you saw in Texas of me practicing, that was my second ever contest flight that I did, and I ended up winning the nationals at the Sportsman level. So I had a good start, and I really owe it to the S2B and that foundation that I had the years before, because I was able to adapt to the competition style of flying pretty easily. Um, but yeah, it just, that experience has stuck with me, and I just kind of stayed. I always tell people, like, like, you got to stay obsessed with this stuff. Like, if you stick with it
Hmm.
and you really want it, you can make it happen. And that's kind of what it was with the extra. Like, I got into intermediate with the S2B. I did pretty well with intermediate, but I could see I was starting to push the airplane a little harder than I was comfortable pushing it. So there it came. I wanted to move up to the advanced level, where, well, advanced, you're starting to do a lot more pushes,
Right.
and the limit of the S2B is -3. And I knew that to score well, I'd probably have to, start pushing a little harder than that. And so it came time to upgrade, to look at something else. So the 300L was the natural progression, because we operate the airplane at a flight school here, so it's not just me flying it. We also, like I said, we do the joy rides in it. I
Right.
do dual instruction in the airplane, so I need something certified. And I was looking at different models. I was looking at the 330LX. That's the latest model
Hmm.
that replaced the 300L. But the problem is it's not yet certified in Canada, which is a shame. So that wasn't really an option. So the 300L was the best option. Um, so what about it? I mean, man, I guess you haven't flown one.
No, no,
No.
no.
Uh, you know, it's kind of like, going from analog to digital.
Mm,
You know, it's like a vinyl record player and like a modern iPod. Like, they're both playing music and you can both get enjoyment from them, but they're a little different. Like, the flavor is different. It's like muscle car to modern, like, Audi sports car.
okay.
So depending on what you're doing, like, if you're not trying to reach high level competition, I mean, I think the S2B can be more enjoyable or totally equal enjoyable. Like, it's very subjective. And if you ever talk to an aerobatic pilot group, you can get some people fighting about what is better. But for me, I do, like, your observation is correct. I do think I get more enjoyment from flying the 300L, just because I think with my progression in flying, like, I've been flying a long time and I've been flying aerobatics a long time. I think my progression to be able to do, like, what's in my mind,
Hmm.
the extra can reproduce that easier. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Yeah.
So that's really what it comes down to. It's a greater sense of capability, freedom. Yeah, the airplane lets me be me, I guess you could say. Um, yeah, like with the SCB, I felt a little held back.
Mm,
You know, not like it's an amazing airplane, and but I did kind of peek out on it, and but every once in a while I get a chance to fly a Pitts, and it's an extremely enjoyable thing. You know, like I always say, in a perfect world, I'd have both in the hangar. You know,
right.
you know, yeah, because there's something about a biplane, right? That's fairly romantic and kind of captures the imagination of people, especially people that are not familiar with airplanes or
Mhm.
aerobatics. You know, if you have an extra and a Pitts on a ramp on an apron, and you know people that walk by and that don't know anything about it, they're gonna 10 times out of 10 they're gonna walk right towards that Pitts, totally ignore the extra. they're
Exactly.
gonna think they're gonna think it's just like a Vans RV or something,
Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
think twice about it. So but my since my mission nowadays is heavily in competition,
Hmm.
that's why I've really gravitated towards the extra. And eventually, my goal is to compete at the world level, and then eventually, like at the world advanced level, and then after that, I want to fly unlimited. And then for that, I'll actually need a single seat extra. That's the plan. So
So a big thing like with myself and like with Left C Club that I really like am trying to promote is like diversity in the aviation industry. So that could just be anybody, but what I think it starts with is educating people and showing people different opportunities in aviation. So for myself
absolutely,
specifically, aerobatics wasn't something that I thought was like a profession. I always thought of it as like a hobby. You know what I mean?
sure,
I
sure.
thought of it like, you know, when a successful person has enough money, they go splurge and go get an extra
A,
300 to play with them.
a toy. Uh,
Exactly.
yeah,
That's what I always thought of it as.
yeah.
Um, so can you just, I mean, because I still don't know too much about it.
Hmm.
And that's why I was really like excited about this interview because I feel like I can actually learn more than
Cool, cool.
than I knew before. So, in your opinion, like, and since you're in the field and everything, what is aerobatics? What is aerobatic flying? And I know there's difference between doing it for fun and like competition. So can you
Hmm.
just talk a little bit about what that means to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So aerobatics is another dimension of freedom in aviation. Like, there's just in the same way that there's no one airplane that can do everything. Like, people always ask, like, how many airplanes would I need, to have the perfect hangar? And I think the answer is close to 10. Like, you need like 10 airplanes to really have the total, package of freedom, float planes and bush planes and all that.
Right.
But so aerobatics is total freedom. It's truly three-dimensional flying. Like you learn to see the sky in a totally different way. This is not me talking. This is what the people I fly with tell me. I just did this yesterday. I took two people up who have never done uh, aerobatics before, and they just say, "I can't believe that you can even do this." And these people are pilots. Like they're just used to flying straight and level,
Hmm.
and that's it. That's what flying is. So this is exposing them to flying in every attitude, vertical, straight down, inverted, and every combination in between. And not only learning that you can do that personally, you can do that safely, you can do that competently. You learn your limitations, you learn the limitations of the airplane, and taking that knowledge, and you can transfer that into absolutely any form of flying. And it like just yesterday I was sitting down with someone, and like we're planning a day where there's a group of women, female pilots from the area that want to learn about aerobatics. So one of the questions that they asked me to talk about was like, why aerobatics? Like, what is that going to do for me?
Right.
And I think the quick answer for that is it's going to make you not scared anymore of certain things. Like what happens if I go over here in this attitude? What happens if I'm upside down? Like, do the wings fall off?
Hmm.
Do I just go straight down? Like, what happens? So it's a huge question mark to a lot of people. So that anxiety, that apprehension, that actually can infiltrate everyday flying, and it can actually inform actions of a pilot. and to, unfortunately, we've seen to catastrophic ends and accidents and things like that. So, I mean, first and foremost, it's education.
Hmm.
It's the full envelope exploration of flying an airplane. Because people in flight training, private, commercial, you explore only so much of the flight envelope, and
Right.
you stay very tightly in there, and you do not spend much time outside of that envelope. Well, in aerobatics, not only are we exploring the full envelope, but we're embracing it, and we're doing it in a very safe, controlled, very deliberate way. So, so like even if you have no intention of doing any more than a basic aerobatic course, at the school here, and it's pretty typical at other schools, like we offer like a 5 hour and a 10 hour course.
Right.
So 5 hours just to kind of improve your confidence, and then 10 hours just to kind of reinforce those concepts and explore a little bit more. But 10 hours is kind of the average, basic aerobatic course. A lot of people, that's kind of the end of the road. That's as far as they will take aerobatics. But even so, the feedback that we get of how it enables people to see everyday flying scenarios in a different way makes them feel so much more confident about what they're doing. So that's really what it is at the beginning of it. Is just it's education. It's exploring the full envelope, understanding the airplane's true limitations, your limitations as a pilot, and learning how to operate in all attitudes in a totally safe way. So that's kind of like the point of entry.
Hmm.
And then so the education and all that, which doesn't sound, super sexy, but beyond that, man, it is just unbelievable fun. Unbelievable fun. That's and to be honest with you, you think I'd be doing this for 17 years if it wasn't kind of
Right.
fun?
Right.
All the money I put into this of my own, like the fulfillment that it brings me is it's hard to measure it. So fun. I mean, it's education. It's crazy amount of fun, and I have done a lot of different types of flying: IFR, single pilot, bush flying, float flying. I've been instructing for a long time. I'm a flight test examiner as well, but by far, into the competition world is the most challenging and fulfilling type of flying that I've been engaged with. I'm about 10,500 hours, and by far the most satisfaction I get is from a planned and executed, like a well planned and executed competition flight, and seeing the results from that. Um, and just knowing that there's really no way to be perfect. There you'll never get a perfect score in a competition flight, but that drive to be better than the last time,
Hmm.
that internal drive makes you better as a pilot, and I think as a person, honestly, all around. So it's really as deep as you want it to be. You can do it very casually, like get the training. A lot of guys will get the training, and like they'll have access to like a super decathlon, or
Hmm.
maybe they own a Vans RV. This is something that I experience quite commonly where I live. People will have an RV, very capable airplane, good cross country airplane, but still capable of aerobatics, and they want to be able to safely do a loop, do a roll, do a hammerhead, do spins, and then eventually share that with people in a very safe way. So, and they just kind of want to casually do that, on the weekends, and that's
Hmm.
totally cool too. You don't need to want to be a competition pilot to get satisfaction and benefit from doing this. So what is aerobatic flying, man? It's total freedom. It's total envelope exploration. It's total fun.
I like that. What I really like is that you emphasize safety. I feel like that's a really big fear for not necessarily pilots, but anyone, like maybe looking at aviation or curious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because myself, like I've had friends and people tell me like, oh, I'm crazy for getting in a plane. Like I would never get in a plane,
Yeah. Sure.
and
Sure.
it's not like I just feel like eliminating that fear is
Yep.
one of the first steps. So
Absolutely.
can you just talk about I guess what measures that you take as an aerobatic pilot to stay safe?
Yeah. That's a great question. And you're absolutely right. Like aerobatics in North America, have you heard of the International Aerobatic Club, the IAC? Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
they're a division of EAA, and they kind of govern all the competitions in North America, and they provide education resources for learning aerobatics, and so it's a really a very supportive club, and one of the prime mandates of the club is exactly what you said, safety. Um, so, for instance, where I live right now, I'm in the process of setting up the very first competition in my area, in my province. So, getting the town council on board with what we're doing here is kind of where I'm at right now. And my first approach to kind of explaining the event to people, like people that are on the town council, whatnot, the mayor, is this is a very safe event.
Hmm.
This is not a bunch of reckless cowboys going out there and messing around and doing anything reckless. Everything is very calculated. There's very strict guidelines on altitude that you can be at. So everything is very disciplined. So how do I keep things safe? Um, well, I mean, in many ways, like when I started, I mean, obviously you receive all the training and that you need to be safe. And what I tell people that I train now that have the intention of flying solo aerobatics, um, like, so let's say you do our 10-hour course, a lot of people will want to go solo after that and do all the maneuvers on their own. And what I tell people is, so the 10 hours that you're going to get is going to get you to a safe level. It's not going to get you to world class competition scoring all tens level.
Hmm.
But what is so much more important than trying to do just perfect figures is knowing when they're wrong, knowing when something is going wrong, knowing when your energy state is not right, knowing when the attitude is not conducive to what it is you're trying to do. Like, the end result would be tremendous altitude loss and things like that. So it's learning to recognize when things are starting to go wrong. I mean, it's an old saying that we say in flight training, like a good pilot doesn't know just when things are right, but a good pilot knows when things are not right.
Hmm.
So that's never more true in aerobatics, is learning to recognize those moments so that you can get yourself out of there, recover safely, catch your breath, and learn about, like, what just happened here. Okay,
Right.
how can I avoid that next time? So a high level of conservatism in the beginning, not biting off more than you can chew, and then just very slowly increasing your envelope of what you're capable of. So it's a slow process.
Hmm.
So how do you stay safe? I mean, conservatism. You don't do a cannonball into the pool. You kind of dip your toes in, and you take it slowly, and you do everything really high up.
Hmm.
That's a big part of it. The other big part of it, honestly, is finding the right instructor. That's a huge part of it. Is having the right guidance. Um, and unfortunately, that's probably one of the more difficult aspects of getting into aerobatics. Is like, where do I find that mentorship to guide me through this process? A bit of it involves luck, being in the right place at the right time, connections, someone introduces you. That's by and large the story that I hear in the IAC is like, well, how did you get your start? Well, I talked to this person who introduced me to this person,
Yep.
and then kind of things got started. So you could look on the IAC website and see if there's, aerobatic schools in Wisconsin or in the area. Like for me, when I got started, like I did all my initial training here. Like my dad taught me all the basic aerobatics and on the pits and whatnot. But eventually, I wanted to learn more advanced stuff that he wasn't too comfortable doing. So like I had to go to California, I had to go to Florida, I went to Arizona, flying different pits models, different extras, just to get as much broad education as I could. So it did require a bit of traveling on my part, which it's a sacrifice, but I wanted it badly enough.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so just find a school in your area, and hopefully, there's a good instructor who's going to kind of take you under their wing and really mentor you into the world of aerobatics. That's a big part of the people that I talk to that have had a successful path. They had that support system from the beginning, because from the outside looking in, it can definitely seem very nebulous. Like, where do
Exactly.
I start here?
Exactly.
And honestly, if you can get to a school that does like intro to aerobatic courses, like a discovery flight, introductory flight, if you will, that's probably your best bet. And then that'll begin the conversation, and then so much can happen from that. But in the US, it's a lot easier than in Canada because there's a lot more IAC chapters around your country. So honestly, one of the best things someone could do is show up to a aerobatic competition and want to volunteer.
Mm.
So find the contest director and say, "Hey, I'm so and so. I don't know anything about aerobatics, but I'm here. I'm interested, and what can I do to help?" This has been the thing that I think um, sparks the most growth the most expeditiously, because nothing excites contest organizers more than volunteers that are wide-eyed and eager to help. You will learn more in that weekend than you could in probably several weeks of training otherwise. The exposure to the world of aerobatics and
Right.
it costs you nothing other than your time, which is great. So there are different ways you can get into it, other than going to a flight school, getting an introductory course, finding a good instructor, or just show up to a competition. There's lots of competitions throughout the U.S. Through the summer months, and they're all like ongoing right now. So, and they're all on the calendar on the ISC website. There's a contest calendar page. You can see where they are, the dates, the airport that they're at, and the chapter and the contest director name, email, all it's right there. So that's probably how you want to get into it.
So with you know, competition being such a big aspect of the aerobatic like
Yep.
field, is there like with airlines and CFI and other commercial jobs, that's pretty much like a set income that you can kind of ballpark and you can expect to make.
Sure.
With aerobatics, I feel like it's not necessarily like a salary that you can expect. Like a doctor will make this much per year. You know what I mean? I feel like
Yeah.
aerobatics
Yeah.
is just, is it all
Yeah.
competition based or is there other ways that you can make a steady income in aerobatics?
Well, unfortunately, there's not great news here. Like you mentioned in the beginning, like hobby, really, like it is a hobby for just about every person who does competition. The people that do it more, on a career level would be the people that compete at the unlimited level
Mhm.
on a world level. But even then, you're for the most part, unless you have good sponsorship, you're paying out of your own pocket. So that is the unfortunate bit of competition is that there is no money in it. That's the long and short of it. Is the only way you can make money flying aerobatics is really to be an air show pilot, and
Okay.
even then, to do it as a primary career, there's only a very small number of people in the U.S. that can do that as a career, and then you got to do like 30 shows a year, which is it's a tough life.
Yeah.
So a lot of people that do air shows will be, like an airline pilot, and then on weekends they'll be an air show pilot to kind of, supplement their income and justify the existence of their airplane, and just to bring themselves, personal enjoyment and satisfaction. But yeah, in the competition world, it's a money pit. Unfortunately, it's a hobby that you're gonna pay out of your own pocket. But I mean, if you look at some of the hobbies that people are into, a lot of people are into different things that cost a lot of money.
Right.
So it comes down to making choices, maybe making some sacrifices, which is totally fine with me. I didn't get in this like competition world to make money. I
Yeah.
got into it for personal satisfaction, pushing myself as a pilot, and then the community of people that I've come to know are what keeps me coming back. It's such a tight, inclusive community, supportive community. That's what's kept me coming back. But yeah, you're not gonna be a millionaire becoming a competition pilot, unfortunately.
I agree with you. I feel like flying isn't something that you should do for the money. You know what I mean? If you're in it for the money, you're not in it for the right reasons.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you, man. Yeah, there has to be this driving passion.
Hmm.
There has to be. there's so many obstacles that come in learning to fly and beyond that. If you don't have that passion, it's hard to stick through it long term.
Exactly. You're gonna wash out.
Yeah, yeah,
But with the competition being said, one thing that I feel like lots of people don't understand is that, and obviously like I said before, I've never flown aerobatics, but from watching videos and seeing the amount of G that the pilots have to, be able to withstand, I don't think
yeah.
people really understand the physical demands that this type of flying has on a person's body. So can
Sure.
you speak to, what it like physically feels like while
Hmm.
doing these, high G maneuvers and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. People always ask me, do you ever black out? Do you ever black out when you're flying? Because you're pulling so many G, do you ever black out? Well, um, when you start flying, like you're going to be flying low performance airplanes like a Citabria or a Super Decathlon or something like that.
Hmm.
The nature of that kind of flying is not so physically intense. Like, you're when you're learning, you're not doing big sequences all at once. You're just doing one maneuver, one figure at a time. So, it's like when you do one maneuver, yeah, you're going to pull upwards of 4G or something, but you're only going to do it for a very brief amount of time, because as the airplane loses airspeed, your G potential decreases. So, at the beginning, the physical demands are really not they're not so much of an issue. Um, and it can stay that way for the most part, like depending on the style of flying that you want to do, the level of intensity that you want to do. Like, um, it's only really when you get more into the upper echelons of competitive flying that you really need to start thinking about your physical fitness, because of the both the intensity of the G. Like, you'll start doing more positive, you'll start doing more negative G. Positive being when you're pulling on the stick, and negative when you're pushing on the stick. So negative G is very unpleasant. You're being held against your harnesses, upwards of negative, at my level, I fly about -6 at most. So you can imagine your body weight multiplied by 6 trying to throw you out of the cockpit. It gets pretty painful, or it can be. Um, but it's really like any other high intensity sport. Like, you don't start on a super high level. Like, you
Right.
ease into it, right?
Yeah.
And your physicality kind of increases along the way based on what really the mission is, what you need to be able to be capable of. But yeah, just general fitness things definitely apply. Like, like I run, about 1,000 miles a year, and I do 100 push-ups a day to stay kind of fit. And you can't get too big. These aerobatic airplanes are not so big,
Right.
so you can't be 280 pounds and fit into a little Pitts S2V. It's just not going to work. Physically, you just can't fit in there. But yeah, being able to withstand negative G, positive G at the higher levels definitely, requires a high level of fitness. So you got to really take care of yourself. But um, yeah, but again, it's like any other sport. Like, you know, um, you can, just because you're not in super great shape doesn't disqualify you from being able to do it, but it
Mhm.
really defines how you're going to feel during it and how you're going to feel after it, right?
Right.
Like, if someone who doesn't ever run and they go run 5 miles, they could probably get through that and survive, but
Hmm.
they're going to feel horrible for like a week after.
Yeah.
But someone who does it regularly, they could do it to like in the next 5 minutes and not feel anything in the evening. So it's kind of like that. Like, for me, I can do 5, 6, 7 or more aerobatic flights in one day teaching, and I won't feel anything in the evening. But
Was
someone
it
who's
always
just
like that though?
no, definitely not. Like, no, you definitely feel way more tired and exhausted at the beginning, and probably you wouldn't even consider doing that many when you're starting off. But it's like anything. Your endurance increases with exposure, with repetition, and of course the physical training end of things. So the physical fitness is not a barrier to entry,
Hmm.
but it is something that you have to kind of look at as like a professional sport. Like if you want to be competitive at the higher levels, like advanced and limited, you have to look at it as a competitive sport like anything else. You have to take care of yourself, nutrition, fitness, all the things you would in anything else. Otherwise, you're going to have it's going to be way more unpleasant than it needs to be. And what you're capable of is going to be less. So you're probably not going to be able to perform as well as the other pilots because you're held back by your body.
Right.
But what by the time you get to that level, all that is going to be very known to you. So you should be making very informed decisions about how you're living your life if it is your intention to be competitive at that level. But by no means should someone be thinking, okay, I want to get into airbags. Shoot, I better be doing 100 push-ups a day. I better be running 10 miles a day because no, it's not like that.
Well,
Yeah,
I feel like that's like reassuring,
yeah.
because like for myself, before I started, my private training, and before I even really like dove into the requirements to become a pilot, I just thought like, if I had asthma, I'm not going to be able to be a pilot. If I had
Mm, yeah, sure.
like a broken finger or something, like that's going to disqualify me
Yeah.
from. So I thought it was like a really strict, um, like set of guidelines that these pilots have, but in reality, it's really just general fitness.
Correct. Exactly right.
Has there ever been a time that you were, I don't want to say scared, but where you're like, okay, like the training and like I don't, I guess your instincts kind of kicked in.
Um, I can't. I've run out of fingers to count the ways. Scared. Scared is not the right word, but like hyper aware and like adrenaline pumping.
Hmm.
So certainly. I mean, um, like something that come quickly to my mind because I wrote an article about it a few years ago. It's basically I was flying in northern Canada as a charter pilot in a Piper Navajo single pilot, and I was in a situation where I was climbing out, fairly low level, probably about 500 feet AGL, and I'm in the climb out, and I could see ahead of me that some bald eagles that were headed straight towards me, big birds. And it's one of those things where you can look at it and you just know that the geometry of this is not good.
Hmm.
And you know that if you do nothing, there's a very high chance that you could hit these birds, and that's going to be a bad day. Those are big birds, and it's a fairly small airplane. So instantly, your heart is pumping, your adrenaline is going, and you can. I don't know how you are, but in those instances, my mind shows me the worst case scenario. Like I can see myself hitting it in that instant. So that fuels me to take action immediately. And what my aerobatic experience gave me in that situation and what it gives me in a lot of other situations is it since I talked about opening the envelope
Hmm.
of what is possible and what is safely possible, what that allowed me to do in that instance, so here I am climbing out, like a typical 15-degree, 10-degree bank cruise climb. What I ended up doing is I banked this Navajo. Like, are you familiar with the Navajo? It's like an 8-seat
Yeah.
twin, piston twin. So to avoid the birds that were coming straight at me, I basically banked the airplane to 80 degrees and pulled and then allowed the airplane to descend. And I unloaded the G as I rolled out as if nothing ever happened. So being able to know that I can bank a light twin to 80 degrees of bank,
Hmm.
manage G force, manage airspeed, manage altitude loss, all the while keeping an eye on the bird so I know what rate of turn I need to use. Like that's just one example of what aerobatics has given me that has impacted my everyday flying. So it's not like I was scared. It's just like hyper aware
Right.
and knowing that if I do nothing, I'm gonna have a bad day. Um, but no, honestly, there's been brief seconds where I felt like especially in the earlier stages, like, like when I was learning the S2B on my own, like I was exploring the whole spin, the whole spin regime.
Mhm.
There was a couple of times where, yeah, like, okay, what's the plane doing? And like you do corrective action and you do what you think you're supposed to do, and then nothing happens. And then, that's not good.
Yeah.
And then, you stick with it and it recovers like 2 seconds later. But nothing ever where you're out of control and you're like, I don't know what's going on and I can't recover from this. Please God, get me out of this. Never anything like that, because like I said, of the training, the foundation, and the slow progression. Like I said, we're not doing cannonballs into the pool. We're
Right.
easing ourselves into it. We're not biting off more than we can chew. By the time I was flying an S2B, I had 600 hours total and lots of tail wheel time. And like I mean, I've had students do just bizarre things to me. Like I've stalled high performance airplanes, experimental airplanes, and the student kind of freaks out and puts us into a spin, cross controlled, and I have to get us out. And so things like that, like where your heart is pumping really strong, but never like, I don't know what's going on. How do I get out of this? Never.
Okay.
And that's over a long time, 17 years of flying. So, and again, like, how do you get that way? By removing fear through
Hmm.
experience, through education, through practice, through the right guidance. Like that's the way that I was able to do that progression. But I mean, there's been people who probably just kind of jumped in and went for it
Right.
and hope for the best. That is not a recommended methodology of learning this, because there is a lot that can go wrong in aerobatics if it's not well understood. Like I mean, if you go on YouTube and you can unfortunately find all sorts of crazy things on there. Like you'll see someone rolling a Cessna Skyhawk right
Hmm.
off the deck, and they survive it, but it's just so close to being a disaster. And yeah, like, that kind of stuff makes me very
What's
concerned.
some
But
advice that you would give to anyone that is, interested in aerobatics and wants to, like go all the way? You know what I mean? Like
ab-
to take it
ab-
to the competition level and beyond.
yeah, absolutely. So find a community. Number one, you need a community. There is no way that you're going to go anywhere in aerobatics without help.
Hmm.
Um, and not that you'd want to anyway. One of the best aspects of the sport, of the activity, is the tight knit group of people that do it. So you need to find your community. With social media these days, there's lots of ways you can get connected to groups of people. I would suggest, there's a couple of great groups on Facebook. Like you search for aerobatic pilots. There's a group of more than 5,000 people that are super passionate about aerobatics, and it's a very fun group. There's lots of joke sharing, and we don't take ourselves too seriously, but we're also a very supportive group. So if you go on there and you say, "Hey, I'm so and so. I'm totally new to aerobatics,
Hmm.
but I'm super interested. How can I get started? This is where I live." I can guarantee you're going to get dozens of replies of people trying to help you out and get you set up with a local mentor. So find community. That's number one. Um, the other things I mentioned, show up to an aerobatic competition that is on the IAC contest calendar. If there's something near to you, that's great. Show up, or better yet, get a hold of the contest director ahead of time. Tell them that you're coming and I want to volunteer and I want to get involved. There's no better way to learn the sport and how to learn aerobatics than doing that. And then if there's a school near to you, then better yet, then go to a school and find a good instructor who's gonna mentor you into the whole world of aerobatics. And yeah, and just and do it with like an attitude of humility. Like a lot of pilots, will feel like they have something to prove from day one. Like, I'm such and such a pilot with so many hours and so many ratings, so
Right.
therefore I must perform at a certain level. Well, I've talked to people where that mindset kind of actually will prevent them from even starting, because like, well, what if I'm not very good? Like, I don't want to feel that way. And and that's not what this is about. Like this, you have to recognize that this is a very different type of flying. So there's going to be a learning curve to it. So you have to kind of allow yourself to be a student again, and enjoy the process, right? Be a
Right.
student. But that's really what I would do, is find a community, and I can guarantee you, once you do, you're going to have all the support that you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
just stick with it, and just stick with it. You know, like it can be a bit hard to get into, but once you get things rolling, you know, such a great thing to be part of. So have you been to Oshkosh then?
nope.
Adventure?
So that's the thing. Like I didn't know about aviation or anything, and I didn't know that Oshkosh was like
A thing?
the thing, you know. So I just figured out about it last year. Um,
Okay, okay.
and you know, it was canceled last year. So
Oh my goodness, what bad time. But it's gonna be on this year.
mhm.
So you need to be there, man. You need to be there.
I'm definitely gonna be there for sure.
If you want to talk about community, there's no better place on planet Earth than AirVenture.
Absolutely.
And and if you end up going, depending on the whole border situation, like I would definitely like to be there as well. I try to go there every year. The IAC, the International Aerobatic Club, has a pavilion right at Show Center. It's a permanent building that's there, so you can go in there, and anyone curious about aerobatics, that is the place to go. You walk in there, there'll be greeters at the door, and they're going to be very friendly and say, "Welcome here. What can we do for you?" And if you say, "I'm so and so, I'm interested in aerobatics, but I don't know anything about it," man, you're going to be taken care of. So get to AirVenture.
Oh yeah. Okay. Let me make sure I
Yeah.
write that down. I feel like you've done all the maneuvers, all the, you know, push the plane to, you know, its limits, you know. So what is your, in your opinion, your favorite maneuver to do and your least favorite maneuver to do?
Oh, that's an easy question to answer. Let's see here. Or I'm going to show you I have some sequence cards that I've printed to my wall here. Okay, so this is what a competition sequence card looks like. All these little symbols and lines and whatnot on it. So my least favorite, and like a lot of pilots, is this one here. This is called a rolling circle. Okay,
Hmm.
so a rolling circle is basically like, in your private pilot training, you do a steep turn, yeah?
Right.
So imagine doing that, but at the same time, the airplane is rolling and turning at the same time. So imagine we're here and we want to do a 90-degree of heading change. We want to turn the airplane 90 degrees, but at the same time, we want to roll the airplane 360 degrees. So you're going to turn and roll at the exact same time. So, not losing altitude, keeping turn rate constant, keeping roll rate constant. So, as you can imagine, that's a pretty involving maneuver to do. And that's a basic rolling turn. The one I just showed you, you're you're doing this one here. This is a 270 degrees of heading change, and you can see these little arrow things here. There's three
Hmm.
arrows.
Yep.
Those arrows represent 360 degrees of roll. So you're doing 360 degrees of roll to the outside of the turn. Now wrap your head around that. The airplane is turning one direction, but it's rolling the other direction. So that's called an outside rolling turn. That will melt your brain. But the good news is you don't start with doing those. You
Right.
work your way up with much, much, much simpler ones. So I have a love-hate relationship with those because they are very difficult to do to a high grading standard. Could be that I'm just not that good at them, but they're probably the thing I practice the most. So I'm not a big fan of those. But what I love the most, anything involving a snap roll. So a snap roll is a type of roll. A snap roll, if you look here, are these triangular shapes.
Hmm.
So oops, this is upside down. Anything with a triangle is a snap roll. So Like a regular roll, here's the airplane. A regular roll, you would roll the airplane around its longitudinal axis like that.
Right.
Whereas a snap roll, it's you pull the stick back sharply, like you're doing an accelerated stall, and you kick the rudder at the same time, and you basically stall one wing, and that induces a very explosive, rapid rotation. So a snap roll, you can always tell is a snap roll because you're going to see the nose pitch up first, followed by a very rapid roll. And you can actually hear them if you're ever like at a competition or an air show. You'll always hear like the propeller sound will kind of snarl when that happens. So those are really fun because those can be placed on all sorts of different lines. You can do a snap roll going straight down, straight up, on the top of a loop, all sorts of things. So those are really fun because they're so explosive and they require such quick reaction time. So
Hmm.
when you get one, when you nail one, it is such a good feeling because you nailed it in the moment and you're just like, oh yeah, that was cool. That was good. So yeah, snap rolls I love, rolling circles, not so much. Like I said, man, stay with it, stay interested, and it'll happen. You'll get the exposure, you'll get your first ride, and then you can see if you like it as much as you think you do, and
Right.
that can be the launch pad for a very fulfilling pursuit of whatever level that you want to be at.
I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule and on such short notice too. I feel like I just like text you a day ago and now we're doing this interview. So I do appreciate
Oh, it's my
the
it's my
flexibility.
it's my pleasure, Mal. And honestly, you get any airbatic pilot talking about airbags, it's hard to get us to shut up. So happy to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, if you do make it to Oshkosh, definitely shoot me a text and maybe we can meet up. That'd be pretty cool.
Definitely, that'd be great. We'll definitely keep that in mind.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you
Cool, man.
again. Have a great day.
You too. Cheers, Mal. Take care,
All right.
man.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye bye.